Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Connecticut Department of Transportation's virtual public informational meeting for State Project 56316, Resurfacing, Bridge Rehabilitation, and Safety Improvements on I-95 in the town of Greenwich and city of Stamford. My name is Neil Patel, and I am the department's project manager for this project. The purpose of today's meeting is to introduce the project team, present the proposed improvements and schedule, and listen to feedback and input from you, the general public, and the affected stakeholders. Please join us for a question and answer session after the formal presentation. I'd like to bring attention to the project webpage, portal.ct.gov/DOT Greenwich 0056-0316. There you will find additional project details and useful links for this project. So let me talk about tonight's meeting format. This meeting is live and recorded. A copy of the recording will be posted on the department's website after tonight's meeting. There will be three ways to communicate during the live Q&A session. First is by email. And again, the email is dotproject56-316@ct.gov, or by phone 860-944-1111. Please reference Project 56316 in your voicemail, and also by chat using the MS Teams live event chat. A moderator will post questions to the MS Teams Q&A chat. We will answer as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. The comment period for this project will run through February 22nd, 2021. I will now demonstrate how to post questions during the live Q&A session. Attendees can click on the question mark that shows the live Q&A event. Select My Questions. Next, type your question, and you also have the option of typing your name or posting as anonymous. Once you have finished your question, click Send or press Enter. The question will then show up in the chat box. The featured section will show all the questions answered, as well as any postings and announcements. We here at the DOT are committed that no person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. Additional information regarding Title VI of the Civil Rights Act may be found in the flyer via the link provided here and also on the project website. The department always strives to include all stakeholders in our public outreach program, and we encourage feedback on our outreach efforts. We would appreciate your feedback by completing the brief survey after the meeting using the link shown here. We will provide this link again at the end of the meeting and during our Q&A session. Now I will turn it over to Tony Margiotta from GM2 Associates for the formal presentation.
Thank you, Neil, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to first take a moment to thank everyone for participating in this evening's public informational meeting for State Project 56316, Resurfacing, Bridge Rehabilitation, and Safety Improvements on I-95 in the town of Greenwich and city of Stamford. Again, my name is Tony Margiotta, Project Manager with GM2 Associates, a consulting engineering firm headquartered in Glastonbury, Connecticut. With me today is Ryan Allard, Lead Highway Designer with GM2 Associates. Representing the Connecticut Department of Transportation this evening is Susan Labatique, Principal Engineer, Neil Patel, Project Manager, and Serge Nicolin, Project Engineer. The agenda this evening will consist of a project overview presentation highlighting the critical features and recommendations. The presentation portion will last approximately 30 minutes. The presentation will cover the project's location, the project's purpose and need, existing conditions present today, the proposed improvements, a construction overview highlighting the project proposed stage construction and traffic impacts, and finally, construction schedule and costs. We will then open up discussions to questions and answers. As Neil discussed earlier, questions can be communicated to us three ways: via email, phone, and MS Teams live chat. State project number 56316 is located in the southwestern region of Connecticut in the town of Greenwich and city of Stamford within Fairfield County. The project is primarily confined to the I-95 corridor. The project begins on Route I-95 at the New York state line at bridge number 1 over the Byram River in the town of Greenwich and extends approximately 6.6 miles to bridge number 23 over West Avenue at exit 6 in Stamford. Throughout the project limits, I-95 has 3 lanes of traffic in each direction, with an existing ADT, or average daily traffic volumes, ranging from 125,900 to 145,700 vehicles per day. The speed limit within the project limits area is 55 miles per hour. Along this section of I-95, there are a total of 6 interchanges. The expressway passes over and under a total of 16 local roads, over the Metro-North Railroad, which generally parallels I-95, and over several bodies of water, including the Byram River, David Hill Pond, Coscop Harbor, and the Mianus River. The project is located along a coastal area of the Long Island Sound, passing through flood zones and other environmentally sensitive areas that have all been taken into consideration during design. This project is primarily a preservation project and falls under the Connecticut Department of Transportation's 4R criteria. The objective of a 4R freeway project is, within practical limits, to return the freeway to its original level of serviceability or improve its serviceability to meet current and future demands. The primary purpose of this project is to extend the service life. The existing wearing surface performance and condition are deteriorating and is approaching the limits of its serviceable life. In addition, the underlying concrete pavement is 60 years old and approaching the limit of its serviceable life. Joint rehabilitation, full depth and or partial depth patching is required. As a result, timely and comprehensive structural pavement rehabilitation is required to extend the pavement life and restore functionality. In addition, the 20 bridges in this corridor project limits, which were originally constructed in 1955, are also in need of preservation and general repairs, such as replacing bearings, spot repairs to the structural steel, substructure repairs, and painting of beam ends. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, approximately 36,000 people die and 3 million people are injured each year on America's roadways. The Connecticut Department of Transportation is committed to improving safety on our highways, and therefore is a primary purpose of this project. Safety improvements for this project include, but are not limited to, upgrading the median and roadside barriers, upgrading and installation of MASH-compliant guide rail, upgrading the lighting, and upgrading the signing. While the primary purpose of this project is to preserve and extend the service life of I-95, a secondary opportunity or spot improvement was identified to extend the deceleration lane at exit 3 southbound, which would provide operational and safety benefits as well as congestion relief at this exit. We will discuss the proposed improvements in more detail shortly. Throughout the project limits, the I-95 corridor has 3 lanes of traffic in each direction, separated by a median barrier, varying in height between 32 and 45 inches. The cross-section consists of 3 12-foot wide lanes in each direction, an inside or left shoulder between 10 and 12 foot wide, and an outside or right shoulder varying between 10 and 11 feet wide. In terms of the cross-section, it will remain as it is today. There is no widening proposed other than the exit 3 southbound deceleration spot improvements previously mentioned. As part of our design, we performed a roadside safety audit within project limits. As part of that audit, we evaluated crash data available from the University of Connecticut repository. The image shown here is a heat map of the corridor, with red indicating the higher number of crashes. As we would expect, due to the high traffic volumes on I-95, there were a high number of crashes reported, over 2,200 crashes in a 3-year period, or greater than 2 per day. Crashes were concentrated at the interchanges, however, no apparent accident pattern at any one location that would suggest substandard design elements. By far, the most striking pattern observed throughout the project area were rear-end crashes, indicative of congestion, followed by side swipes, indicative of weaving, cars traveling from one lane to the next, and finally, roadway departures or fixed object crashes, which our roadside safety improvements will address. As previously discussed, one of this project's primary purpose and needs is to extend the pavement life and restore functionality. As part of that effort, we developed an extensive pavement data collection and evaluation program to document existing conditions and develop a pavement rehabilitation strategy for this project. We utilized digital imagery and latest technology and performed a pavement surface condition survey, which documented and evaluated the pavement distresses at the surface level. We then mobilized GPR, or ground penetrating radar, to document deterioration and distresses at the subsurface level. Next, we mobilized our falling weight deflectometer units to evaluate the physical properties of the pavement and estimate the pavement structural capacity. And finally, we perform a number of geotechnical, borings, and pavement corings to validate our results. A full detailed report is available for those that are more interested. However, in summary, the protective layer of asphalt over the existing concrete pavement has done a reasonably good job of preserving the underlying concrete pavement. However, after 60 years, more extensive rehabilitation is now required. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ryan to discuss our proposed improvements in more detail. Ryan.
Thank you, Tony. Now that we've covered the project background, I'm going to switch gears and discuss our proposed design, starting with the overall scope of improvements. Here is an aerial of I-95 Interchange 3 at Arch Street, with southbound heading to the left side of your screen and northbound to the right. This project will address substandard roadway cross slopes on the northbound and southbound side. All substandard median will be replaced with standard 45-inch tall F-shaped barrier. Drainage pipes and outlets will be replaced or cleaned. Some selective tree clearing will be necessary for construction and site distance. All lighting will be upgraded and moved to the median wherever possible. 20 bridges within the corridor will be rehabilitated. All overhead and roadside signing will be replaced. All roadside safety will be upgraded, including the installation of standard MASH-approved guide rail. Also, the pavement condition data that was collected will be used to target and repair the slabs and joints as necessary. And finally, the previously mentioned spot improvement on I-95 Exit 3 southbound, which we'll take a closer look at now. Depicted here is a zoomed-in aerial of I-95 in the vicinity of Exit 3, with I-95 southbound again moving to the left and northbound to the right of your screen. This is a particularly congested off-ramp with over 137,300 vehicles per day traveling south, and 10,600 of those vehicles taking the exit each day. Due to these volumes, drivers experience backups onto the main line, which result in higher than normal concentration of crashes. Here we have Exit 3 from I-95 southbound with an overlay of the crashes from the 3-year time frame used to develop the design. As you can see, there is a concentration of crashes right at the exit. The type of crashes are on trend with what was discussed earlier, along with the rest of the corridor, primarily rear-end crashes indicative of the congestion experienced in the area. Before outlining the proposed improvements, I'll give you some more detail regarding the constraints in the area that needed to be taken into account during the design. Here again, we have I-95 running from left to right. Highlighted in orange are the 2 bridges in the vicinity, bridge number 10 on the left and bridge 11 on the right. Here, highlighted in red, is an existing rock outcropping along the outside of I-95 southbound. And here you can see the bottleneck created by bridge 10, where the shoulder narrows to as little as 2 foot 9 inches. And finally, we needed to take into account the heavy parking needs below bridge 10 when developing a context-sensitive solution. Now that we know the background of the area, I'll walk you through the proposed spot improvement at I-95 southbound Exit 3. The thin section of yellow along I-95 southbound indicates the new pavement being added. The blue indicates the section of rock outcropping that is being removed, and the red indicates the portion of rock outcropping that would remain untouched. The posted speed limit remains the same at 55 miles per hour, and the proposed exit lane is extended as far back towards Bridge 11 as possible without needing to widen Bridge 11. This results in a 1,200-foot deceleration length. This is well above the existing 205-foot that's there today, and also significantly greater than the required 470 feet. Here you can see a cross-section view of the improvement I outlined, showing the rock outcropping in red and the widened section of pavement along the outside of I-95 southbound. Here is a slide depicting the proposed concrete pavement repairs. To the right are pictures showing the operations, and below them is a sample of our plans depicting the concentration of repairs shown in orange. The work entails the removal of all asphalt, exposing the concrete slabs below, repairing the slabs and joints using the data collected as a guide, then the addition of the new asphalt on the newly repaired concrete. All work is proposed to be done at night with short-term single night ramp detours to minimize impacts to the traveling public. As previously mentioned, there are numerous bridges being rehabilitated as part of this project. There are 23 bridges in total. 3 overpasses have no proposed improvements, leaving 20 in the contract. 2 of these bridges are over navigable waterways, bridge number 1 over the Byron River and bridge number 6015 over the Mianus River. The repairs include the replacement of median on 3 of the bridges, deck repairs and asphalt replacement on all, improved lighting under the structures and bearing repairs, and the relocation of utilities whenever they're present. We already mentioned the improvements being made to the drainage network. We'll go into a little bit more detail now. Many of the pipes along the corridor, especially the metal ones, have reached their serviceable life and are deteriorated beyond repair. Nearly all the pipes are inundated with hardened sediment, and outlets are clogged and catch basins are in various state of disrepair. Proposed improvements to the drainage system include the cleaning of all remaining structures and pipes, outlet protection installation, new structures and new pipes where required, improved swales and water quality, and the construction of access roads. Opportunities for MS4 permit requirements include the focus on outlets and systems, stormwater quality swales, disconnecting pavement runoff from outlets by encouraging overland flow, and scour holes. Below you can see some typical operations, a reconstructed water quality swale on the left-hand side, and median drainage reconstruction on the right. All new lighting will be added throughout the corridor. Lighting will be installed in the median wherever possible, and all lighting to remain on the roadside will be replaced. Below you can see representations of median lighting on the left-hand side and the roadside lighting that would be installed on the outside. Selective tree clearing will be necessary to allow for construction and to increase the safety of the corridor. Sight distance around curves will be increased by cutting trees back. Some trees will need to be removed in order to replace the slope pipes along the immediate vicinity of the highway. And finally, tree limbs overhanging the highway will be cut back. Stage construction is proposed to begin in the fall of 2022 with a total construction duration of 3 to 4 years. Staging for this project is proposed to be broken into 3 equal 2-mile segments in order to limit the impacts to the traveling public. Segments 1 and 3 will be constructed concurrently, followed by segment 2. Throughout construction, the posted speed limit will remain 55 miles per hour. 11-foot travel lanes will be used, and a minimum of 2-foot shoulders can be utilized. However, for much of the construction duration, shoulders will be wider than this minimum. Lane closures will occur during off-peak nighttime hours with the possibility of weekend work as well. Short-term detours will be required, and for the most part, alternating one-way traffic will occur underneath I-95 bridges over local roads. Below you can see some typical construction activities. On the left is nighttime median reconstruction behind barrier. In the middle is a milling operation behind traffic cones. And on the right is a typical daytime traffic pattern with 11-foot lanes and 2-foot shoulders. This slide depicts the stage in which the median is being reconstructed. This work is highlighted in green in the cross-section picture above and the graphic below. Traffic will be shifted away from the median and protected by temporary barrier while the median is being reconstructed. Again, these will be 11-foot lanes and a 2-foot minimum inside shoulder with a wider shoulder on the outside. Now that the median has been reconstructed, traffic can be shifted to the left-hand side in each direction. The barrier can then be moved to the outside of the highway so that work can be done to the shoulders safely. This is also the stage containing all of the concrete slab repairs, which I'll go into more detail next. Depending on the extent of the repairs necessary, traffic will be merged from the existing 3 lanes to a 2 or a 1-lane section depicted below. As mentioned previously, these lane closures will only occur during nighttime operations, and all lanes will be fully operational during the daytime. Single night detours can be expected at on and off ramps to accommodate construction activities. There will be a minimum of 1 week's notice, and state routes will be used whenever possible. Here you can see a typical detour where I-95 northbound traffic is directed past the closed Arch Street ramp to the next exit, where they will be guided to the southbound Arch Street exit. There will be short-term impacts to local roads crossing underneath I-95 as repairs are being made to the bridges. Most of the roads will remain open throughout construction, utilizing either alternating one-way traffic or reduced roadway width while all lanes are operational. The work being done on the bridges over South Water Street and River Avenue require temporarily closing the roadways below. However, one of these roads will be open at all times and a short detour will be signed for vehicles to follow. An example of this condition is shown to the left of your screen. All impacts on the roadways below will only occur during the daytime while construction activities are underway. The roads will then be restored to their normal operations during the nighttime. To evaluate the environmental impacts associated with this project, there are various permit requirements, including the NEPA process. We will obtain the necessary permits for flood management and construction activities, and as the design progresses, coordination will be required with the Coast Guard, Fisheries, and Army Corps. Some of the proposed bridge rehabilitation activities will result in impacts to the operations at the commuter lots in the vicinity of Strickland Road, River Road, and South Shore Drive. These will be short-term partial closures during construction activities only. We will coordinate with the Greenwich parking official to ensure these impacts are as minimal as possible. And with that, I'd like to hand it back to Tony, who will discuss the upcoming schedule and costs.
Thank you, Ryan. Now we will discuss project schedule and project costs. In terms of schedule, this evening is the formal public informational meeting, the purpose of which is to increase awareness, engage a wide audience in information sharing and discussion, but most importantly, receive feedback from the community and stakeholders. Prior to this evening, we met with the town of Greenwich officials in October to inform and receive some initial feedback about the project. We are available to meet again with both town and city officials, as well as any and all stakeholders to continue information sharing and discussion. Next steps will be design approval and NEPA approval anticipated of March of this year. That will authorize us to proceed with final design, which would be completed in March of next year. We anticipate to go out to bid in the summer of 2022. The contractor with the low bid would start construction or shovel in the ground by fall of 2022. We anticipate a 3 to 4 year construction duration. In terms of costs, the cost to construct is anticipated at approximately $205 million, which includes the base construction costs, incidentals, contingencies, state police costs, utility relocation costs, railroad force accounts, and inflation factor. The project is funded 90% federal and 10% state. At this time, I'm going to turn it back to Neil to wrap up the presentation and open it up to questions and answers. Neil?
Thanks, Tony. This is Neil Patel, Project Manager. That ends our formal presentation tonight. As a reminder, comments are welcome tonight and until the end of the comment period on February 22nd, 2021. Again, the project email, dotproject56-316@ct.gov. We also ask, again, that you take a few extra minutes to fill out our survey. That survey is located at the following link, www.surveymonkey.com/r/GDKRH8J. Welcome to the live Q&A session. Again, my name is Neil Patel, I'm the project manager. As Tony mentioned, the goal tonight is to gather feedback and answer your questions during this session. I'd like to remind everyone there's 3 ways that you can communicate with the project team. The first is by MS Teams chat. The second is via the email, dotproject56-316@ct.gov. And the third method is via the phone line, 860-944-1111. For those of you that are joining us via YouTube, if you scroll below the video, there is a link to our website, and the best way to communicate during the Q&A session would be via email and phone. The email address is listed there, and you would have to copy and paste that address in your email program. So with that, I will take a look at our questions that we have, and we do have a couple of questions that are similar. So I will first read off first couple here that we have. I live 1 mile from exit 5 of I-95. I am concerned about the health consequences due to the dramatically increased noise levels and car pollution in the last few years. The unacceptable noise level is now 24 hours a day. I would like to know if there are any abatement plans to address these issues with this project, and if not, then I ask you add them to the plans for the length of I-95 bordering the Riverside community. That is our first question, and similarly, there are some follow-ups which along the same lines. Has the DOT considered a noise study for exits 3 to 6? And also, can you do sound attenuation? So I am going to ask Christine Zanalis from our Office of Environmental Planning to answer these first couple of questions regarding noise. Christine?
Thank you, Neil. As Neil said, my name is Christine Zanalis. I'm from the Office of Environmental Planning. I have a couple slides that I'd like to share with you tonight to give you a brief overview of the department's noise abatement process. So this project was assessed for a noise analysis and the eligibility under the Code of Federal Regulation 23 CFR 772. This federal regulation provides the requirements for highway traffic noise analyses and noise abatement criteria. In conformance with this regulation, the department has developed a traffic noise policy to implement these requirements. Next slide. The regulation requires noise to be analyzed when a project is funded with federal aid highway funds or if it requires FHWA approval regardless of the funding source. It also must meet the definition of a Type 1 project. Next slide. A Type 1 noise analysis is required for a proposed project that consists of a new highway built on a new location, interchange modifications, an existing highway that is significantly altered by substantially changing the horizontal or vertical characteristics of the road, or the number of through lanes are being increased, as well as if auxiliary lanes are added, meeting certain length criteria defined by FHWA and Connecticut DOT. The project's proposed resurfacing, safety improvements, and bridge rehabilitations did not meet the eligibility for conducting a noise analysis, and therefore one was not conducted under this project. Thank you, Neil. Back to you.
Thank you, Christine. We understand, obviously, there are quite a few questions in regards to the requirement for noise barriers. It is a similar concern that we have throughout our state projects, throughout the state. And again, depending on the type of project, as Christine mentioned, dictates how we go about pursuing if a noise study is required. And again, in this case, our purpose and need is specific to what we call state of good repair, and we want to address the pavement conditions. We want to address the the minor bridge rehabilitations. We are not expanding the highway with this project. It's really to extend the service life of the existing pavement surface and upgrading those safety improvements. So I'm going to see what other concerns we have here, and we've got a question. What is the impact to exit 2 going south? Are we widening the lanes there? And I guess there's a follow-up to that. Will this presentation be recorded and posted to the site? Yes, I'll answer that second one real quickly. A copy of this presentation will be available after the meeting on our project website. So again, what is the impact to exit 2 going south? Are we widening the lanes there? So Tony, I will send that over to you.
Great, thank you, Neil. Again, this is Tony Margiana from GM2 Associates. As we previously stated, the primary purpose in any of this project is preservation. So there will be no widening proposed at the exit 2 noted. The only widening in this project is associated with the exit 3 southbound extension of the deceleration lane. The work associated at exit 2 will be rehabilitating the concrete pavement, repaving of that ramp, installation of guide rail along that ramp, new illumination, new signing and striping. But again, no impacts or widening to that ramp other than rehabilitation of the existing. Thank you.
Thank you,
Neil?
Tony.
Yep.
So I just want to take a second here just to remind folks to fill out our survey. We are obviously always looking for feedback on our public outreach process, and the survey, which is located at www.surveymonkey.com/R GDKRH8J. Would definitely help us out. Okay. Our next question. Will you capture/treat the stormwater runoff as it impacts the Long Island Sound? Okay. Tony,
Sure.
we'll go ahead and give that to you.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Tony Margiata, GM2. So a quick overview of the corridor. So 6 miles through this corridor, there's 254 acres of project area. 50% of that is impervious. It's a narrow urbanized corridor with 62 drainage systems. There are a number of drainage concerns out along this corridor, including the deteriorated corrugated metal pipe that we identified earlier. Many of the pipes are full and hardened with sediment. Many of the outlets are clogged and the catch basins are deteriorated. However, there's a number of opportunities here to improve the drainage system through this corridor. Our approach for this opportunity is to focus on individual outlet systems and improve those where feasible. We're going to install a number of stormwater quality swales in the infield areas, roadside ditches. We're also going to disconnect any impervious surface areas. We're looking to encourage sheet flow by getting rid of the catch base, the curbing rather, and having that sheet flow through the grass to be able to remove some of that sediment. And finally, we're going to install some scour holes at most of the outlets through this corridor. And the new catch basins will also have deeper sumps to also collect sediment. So again, there are a number of opportunities to improve the stormwater quality along this important coastal area. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Again, my name is Neil Patel. I'm the project manager with the Department of Transportation. Thank you again for joining our live Q&A session. Next question. There will be a significant disruption to local residents, train station parking, road closures, duration of construction. Have these impacts been minimized as much as possible in the design? So, Tony, I will throw that over to you. Before I do, I will mention that we did start our outreach program by meeting with town officials. We met with First Selectman and other officials, emergency services, and Public Works. We did have a good discussion in terms of some of those impacts on the in regards to the train station parking. So I'll let Tony go ahead and expand on that.
Great. Thank you, Neil. I'm actually going to have Ryan assist with that question. We spent a lot of time detailing those minimizing the impacts to these parking lots. So Ryan, if you can assist with this.
Thanks, Tony. Again, this is Ryan Aller, GM2, Highway Engineer. So for the commuter lot impacts, we did highlight the Strickland Road, River Road, and specifically the South Shore Drive, the one that we're talking about under at the rail station. Any of these impacts, these are going to be very short term. They're just for the contractor that's going to get in and do any of the repairs, the very minor repairs that are necessary for underneath the bridges. Those impacts are going to be in the vicinity of the repairs themselves, not the entire lot. All this is going to be coordinated with the Greenwich parking official to make sure that there's ample notice so that everybody's aware and can plan ahead. Additionally, was that question also related to the roadway impacts underneath 95? Or, because I can touch on that real quick. So there are some impacts also below 95, as we talked about for local roads. By and large, these are mostly going to be alternating one-way traffic and reduced roadway width. There is one location that was highlighted that there's going to be some roadway closures. So South Water Street and River Ave. These are the only two roads that are proposed to be closed for any duration. These will be short-term durations. These will be only during the daytime, and they will open back up at night. If work is being done on one road, the other road is also going to be the other road is going to be open, so that the detour is going to be very minimal and easy to get around. Back to you, Neil.
Thanks, Ryan. So, and let me take a moment here just to explain again, Tony had mentioned, and I'd like to repeat it in terms of where we are in the design process. We are at what we call 30% design. We've got our next steps are to proceed with our federal approvals. Upon those approvals, we move into what we call the final design phase. And so as we are going through the design phase, you know, tonight is very helpful in terms of comments and recommendations and questions. We will refine that design and as we go forward. And, you know, that's something that I just wanted to let everybody know as we move forward. There are other aspects of the project. One in particular, which is very impactful, is in terms of how do we stage the project? How do we do the construction with minimal disruption to the traveling public? Always a concern, especially in this corridor, this part of 95 in the state. We understand with the heavy volumes, and most of that construction work will take place during the evening hours. And we are looking at some innovative ways possibly to try to expedite construction, as we always do throughout our projects. Next question here. You have already affected significant tree removal. Will you replace any of the trees with other natural screening with carbon retention capability? So in regards to the trees, yeah, we understand, obviously, there have been, you know, our maintenance operations as they've been doing throughout the state, continuing to make sure that the safety of the highway with the trees is taken care of. We will be, you know, looking at, as we move forward in the design, we will be looking at areas of what we call vegetative buffers, looking to incorporate vegetative buffers. Of course, they have to be in coordination with our maintenance operations and where feasible. So we will be looking at that as we go forward with our design. I guess I'll let Tony, if you want to add to that.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you, Neil. Yeah, this is Tony. So our approach to this is really minimize any tree clearing along this corridor. But we unfortunately do require some selective tree clearing to improve the sight distance, for example, around the corner of a curve. Again, that's a safety issue, so we are going to have some of those along some of these corridors. But again, we're looking to minimize the amount of tree clearing. Second is to construct some drainage improvements as associated with the improvements that we discussed earlier. And finally, to eliminate any overhanging limbs. There are a number of trees that are, or limbs overhanging into the highway, and that is a safety issue. So we will be clearing some of those under this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, our next question here. What is the impact to exit 2 going south? Are we widening the lanes there? Exit 2 going south.
Yeah, so again, Neil, this is Tony. So we discussed this previously. There are no widening of the lanes, northbound or southbound, other than the exit 3 deceleration lane that we discussed. Again, this is a preservation project to preserve the pavement and the structures along this corridor. There are future projects that may come along, but this project does not include any widening other than the exit 3 southbound deceleration lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. As a follow-up, we note the comment that came in with that similar question, sound barriers at exit 2, and a similar follow-up, even though it's not required under the regulation, we believe it is warranted and ask that you do it. Is that possible? Again, this is specific to the request for noise sound barriers. We understand the concerns with the noise. It is something the department has heard, throughout the state. Given the funding for this project, also this is a federally funded program, 90% federal, 10% state. As Christine had mentioned, in terms of eligibility, federal eligibility for noise study wouldn't qualify under this project. Again, we understand the concerns, and it's something that we will make note of to discuss with management going forward. We've got a question here. How long is construction anticipated to last? Tony, I'll give that to you.
Sure. Thank you, Neil. So construction is anticipated to last between 3 to 4 years. So the Connecticut Department of Transportation uses a public competitive bidding system for advertising, bidding, and the award process. We anticipate advertising for bids to pre-qualify contractors in the summer of 2022, considering time needed for bidding and then award of contract, start of construction, or shovel in the ground is expected by the fall of 2022. And as we discussed, the project covers a large 6.6 mile linear area. It includes 20 bridge preservation projects. So we anticipate, again, that 3 to 4 year construction schedule. It is important to point out that, as Neil mentioned, we are at 30% design right now. So we are investigating accelerating construction techniques and alternative staging concepts to reduce that construction duration and reduce the overall impacts to the traveling public. But conservatively, we're at 3 to 4 years right now. As Ryan had mentioned earlier, due to the high traffic volumes, we are maintaining the existing number of lanes during the daytime, with much of this work being performed during the nighttime periods. We're also minimizing impacts to the traveling public by phasing the project in 2 mile segments. Under the particular scenario that Ryan had discussed earlier, the contractor could potentially be working on segments 1 and 3, again, to minimize impacts for the full 6 mile corridor through that full period of time. So our goal is, again, to get in, get out as quick as we can. And again, we're going to continue to investigate accelerating that schedule to minimize those impacts. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Looks like we've got another question in regards to adjacent project. Has the timing of this project been coordinated with the timing of the construction work at the New York border on the intersection of 95 with I-287? Do these projects overlap? So before I kind of give it to Tony, yeah, we are coordinating with New York State. We've reached out to them on one occasion, but yeah, they will be coordinated. So we understand the proximity in terms of the overlap. Tony, if you want to talk about the schedule in terms of our anticipated construction schedule, because the New York project has been in construction, let's say almost 2 years, but so hopefully they'll be done.
Great, thank you. So again, we're anticipating shoveling the ground in fall of 2022. The good thing about this 6-mile corridor is we have the opportunity to start at the one end versus the other. So we're going to continue to coordinate with the New York to really minimize those overlaps. But again, we do have the opportunity to refine our construction schedule to really mitigate some of that. Again, our project does, we'll have some lane shutdowns on the New York side. So we're going to continue to coordinate during those time periods. But again, this is our project is primarily repaving and repair of the concrete pavement. We're not doing any widening. So this overlap, I don't see this as being a significant issue, and it's something that we can continually do with a number of projects that are sometimes in the same corridor. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, another question in regards to multiple questions. So let's see here. Underneath many of the bridges, they are very dark. Are you adding light at all underpasses? Can the town add murals to the underpasses? Will you be updating the sidewalks at all locations under the bridges? So a couple of questions in there. I can address the murals in terms of adding murals to underpasses. So as part of this project, that's something, this was discussed, I think, previously between state legislation and our neighborhood association that have reached out to to the department. And I know there were some discussions in terms of the timing. Yeah, we'd like our project to kind of probably come through first, depending on the scope of work on the underpass, before any type of a mural could be added. We wouldn't add it under this project, but I believe there is a process through maintenance and the encroachment permit process that we could definitely follow up on through our legislative office in terms of the request that did come in for that. So that's in terms of the mural. So the lighting, I will go ahead and give that one to Tony and or Ryan.
Sure. Thank you, Neil. This is Tony again from GM2. So as we discussed earlier, there's 20 bridges in this corridor. Half of those have a local road underneath. As you can see here, most of those have a single high pressure sodium light. We will be upgrading the lighting to LED. So those will get an upgrade, those 10 to 12 bridges that I noted. In terms of sidewalk impacts, again, the repairs to these structures are maintenance in nature, including some joint replacements, some bearings, and substructure repairs. But we're not going to be reconstructing sidewalk or the roadway underneath the local roads. So again, the repairs to the bridge are maintenance in nature, substructure repairs of the concrete abutment, steel repairs that will not require any kind of reconstruction to the local road below. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, another question in regards to detours, I think. Will traffic be routed onto Post Road during portions of the project when working on the Exit 5 bridge? So that Exit 5 bridge would be the connector from Route 1 onto 95. So I will go ahead and ask Tony to respond to that.
I'm going to ask Ryan for the detours because he spent some time on detours. I want to give him a chance to add some comments here.
Right, as noted, this is like the detour that we showed on the slide, and this is typical of all of the detours that we're designing for this project. We're not putting, we're trying to keep traffic on 95 as much as possible. So anytime a ramp is closed and anytime you're doing any kind of repairs on an existing ramp, you're going to go to the next ramp up, take that exit, advance to the opposite direction of 95, and take the exit, take the same exit that you were going to take, just in the opposite direction. So anytime a ramp is closed, for instance, going northbound, the southbound version of that ramp is not going to be closed. So you'd be able to stay on 95 just for that one exit and then turn back around. So state routes would be used whenever necessary. And we would prefer to use a state route as opposed to any of the local roads, because we don't want to impact any of the local neighborhoods in the area. But that's generally the methodology of the detours.
Thank you, Ryan. If I can just add to that, again, just to reiterate, these are only single night only detours. So we'll be closing these detours at 8, 9 o'clock at night and open back up by 5 or 6 a.m. the next morning, per the limitations of operations. We will give the public a minimum of 1 week's notice prior to the detour. Also during construction, we'll have some significant public outreach during construction. We'll have a public website, we'll have email news blasts, so it'll be, the public is well informed in terms of when these closures and which ramps specifically will be closed. Again, the work at these ramps are specifically for the repair of the concrete pavement and repaving, installation of guide rail, installation of new illumination at these ramps. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony and Ryan. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead, and we've got a couple more here in regards to the noise and the noise analysis. So I'm going to read a couple of these, and then I'll have Christine Zanellis provide a little bit more information. How much would it cost to do the sound study? Would you accept private funding for it? Please explain how and why Darien was able to get sound barriers. You are planning on extending auxiliary lane by exit 3. Did you perform noise study there? Unfortunately, the noise analysis does not take into consideration the loss of trees. We have already experienced significant tree loss between exit 5 to 2. The noise exists all the time now. I live a mile from exit 3 and I can hear the cars and trucks. So I will, I'll turn it over to you, Christine, and we can kind of throw it back and forth if there's certain things that you need me to get into.
Certainly.
Christine?
Thank you, Neil. I'll first address the exit 3. Of course, we are increasing that deceleration lane. It's something that we analyzed in detail during the beginning of the design phase and in that screening that I was talking about when we're looking to see if it's eligible. Like I stated before, when we're looking at auxiliary lanes, it has to meet certain length criteria in order to be considered as added capacity under the federal regulations and our internal noise policy. So I'm not really, I don't remember the length of it, but I know it didn't meet our criteria, which is the auxiliary lane has to be an additional 2,500 linear feet in order for it to trigger that type 1 noise analysis, and exit 3 did not. The other question, I think, was the privately funded question. We do have a privately funded noise barrier policy that can be implemented by a town or neighborhood. We ourselves would not conduct the noise study on your behalf. It's a policy that I would certainly be happy to share with you. There's certain requirements that would have to be met. One of the requirements is that a DOT project cannot be happening within 5 years. So in order to implement this policy, you would have to wait until after the project was complete. And then there's other requirements that you would have to meet. Basically, you would have to meet our department noise policy. So if that's something you wanted to pursue, I'd be more than happy to have a side conversation or have a telephone call with whoever is interested in that. And Neil, I know there was one more thing you mentioned. Can you just remind me?
So I guess in terms of the tree loss between 5 and 2, the noise exists there all the time. I live a mile from exit 3 and I can hear the cars and trucks. So kind of a question of, the trees and the noise, and we've gotten that similar type question before on other projects.
Yeah, so as we understand, the loss of the trees is definitely a visual, detriment to the community. It's not something that is actually seen as noise abatement. Again, as Neil mentioned, it's something that our maintenance operations has to keep up with after storm damage or because of damage due to the emerald ash borer. There was a couple things that really heightened the need to do tree clearing. And as Neil said, it's something that's going to be investigated as part of the project.
Thanks, Christine. I will also like to follow up, although this was a different question, similar though. Question is, when will you get back to us after contacting management on the noise issues? Realtor.com now gives noise ratings for homes, more noise, less value. So I can tell you, as we do with all of our public outreach meetings, we immediately summarize the main aspects of the meeting and the concerns. We understand, we hear your concerns, and we summarize that and we provide that up to our management the next day, within the next day or so. So, they will be made aware of it in terms of the primary concern within this corridor.
And one of the other noise questions, Neil, too, was why did Darien receive noise walls? I know there was a couple recent projects that came out there, and by recent, I think one was in 2008, one was in 2010. I don't know specifically what the scope of those projects are. It's something that I could certainly look into, but in order for us to have erected noise barriers under those, they would have had to meet the criteria of that type 1 project. So it's something that I can follow up with after this meeting if I can have a little more information on the exact location that you're talking about.
Yes, and just to add to that, Christine, just being familiar with that area, I do know that in Darien they did add an auxiliary lane between exits, so it wasn't just an extension of deceleration lane like we have at exit 3. It was a full auxiliary lane between exits, so it probably met the criteria in terms of the length.
Yes, most of the time when you're adding the auxiliary lane between ramps, it does qualify under the federal regulation. You're correct.
Okay, following up on some other questions that we have here. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us and providing comments and concerns and questions. I also want to thank the design team in terms of helping out today and all the behind the scenes efforts here to pull off this virtual and live Q&A event. So next question, how many trees do you expect to remove? So I think we had a similar question previously. Tony, did you want to take that one?
Sure, I can add to that. So again, we're looking to minimize the tree clearing through this corridor. These are all spot locations that we discussed. It is a little over 2 acres in total along, again, the 6.6 mile corridor. That sounds like a lot, but again, over a 6.6 mile corridor, it's not as much. And again, it is focused on areas to improve the sight distances around a corner. Also for installation, for example, of an overhead sign, so there might be some trees we're taking down to put in a structure. We're also putting in this outlet shown on this drawing here. This is a drainage catch basin and a pipe. So obviously over the years, there's been growth, but we'll have to clear that area to get access. Again, these are all spot locations. This drawing shown here is that an access road to get down to the drainage outlet. We will try to repair these areas as best we can, but again, it's all spot locations through this corridor to get access to improving the outlets, installation of signs, and other sight distance issues that we talked about, as well as, again, clearing of the overburden that these trees could potentially fall on live traffic. So I think that really summarizes that response. Neil?
Thanks, Tony. So we've got a follow-up to exit 2 going south. Kind of a comment. I wish you could close exit 2. Everyone flies through that stop sign going south. Tony, I don't know if you
Yeah, I can just
kind of discuss the operations there
So-
at exit 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for your comment. This is exactly why we have these public outreach programs. We are 30% design, so we do take your comments into consideration. This is, I don't think we're going to close this ramp at this point, but we will look at, maybe improving some signage to reduce the velocity or cars traveling through there and blowing through that sign that was indicated through this comment. We'll have some additional illumination. Again, our goal is to get comments back from you folks to identify these types of issues. So we'll go back and look at this particular site, see if there's any issues. Our analysis didn't find any high accident areas beyond the normal areas. But again, we can look at adding siding to eliminate that problem, as well as the illumination. I think will help assist that.
Thanks, Tony. So again, I just want to remind everyone that the comment period will remain open through February 22nd. And your comments are welcome via email, via the project email, and also via the phone line. Again, the phone line, if you can put our splash screen back up there we go. Our phone line is 860-944-1111. And after the meeting, when you do call in by the phone to leave a comment, just please reference the project number 56316. And again, if you could take a couple minutes to fill out our survey, also located on our project webpage, portal.ct.gov/DOT Greenwich 0056-0316. We also have good project information, project details on the project webpage. It's available. Links also are available. Okay, let's see what we've got here in terms of questions. Can you upgrade the lighting now with LEDs? So I know we talked about lighting on the underbridge lighting in terms of the LED. The question in terms of now, well, it's got to be done with the federal aid project in terms of the lighting being upgraded, so it would have to be done during construction. If that's specific, I think that maybe the question may be targeted to that.
This is Ryan from GN2. If that question was potentially related to the highway illumination itself, all of that is being replaced throughout the corridor. So any of the existing lighting that is on the mainline highway of 95 is going to be replaced. Much of that, if there's room in the median to replace it from the roadside to the median, that will happen. And any roadside lighting that's along the outside will also be replaced, and that's full cutoff lighting.
So, question here, Riverside Association also received many complaints about the increasing pollution from the emissions from the trucks and cars. You can smell the exhaust on the Eastern Middle School grounds. Is there a regulation that deals with fumes emissions issue? So in regards, again, to the air quality, again, it comes back to our intended purpose and need of the project. We're not expanding the project in terms of expansion of lanes, which would also require an air quality analysis at a project level. This project, is within. It does conform within the regional, what we call the regional conformity air quality plan. That is a plan that is included in the statewide transportation improvement program, which goes out from the department. I think it's every year, maybe twice a year. So it goes out to the regions. So all that, in terms of that air quality analysis is done. In this case, it's done in the regional and not at a project level. So in terms of, again, it comes back to that project scope in terms of how we address the air quality. All our projects are screened in terms of the environmental impacts. Is one of the first things that we do in terms of whether it be air quality, whether it be archaeological or historical properties, water resources. And again, it comes back to what is the level of improvement for this project. And again, the purpose of need is really trying to extend the pavement surface and the underlying concrete, upgrade the safety in terms of roadside safety. The median barrier is in some areas it's not up to our current standards, or even it's been damaged, and so we want to address some of the concerns there. We want to obviously improve the lighting with our latest technology and equipment. So that's, again, it comes back to that purpose and need.
And Neil, if I can add to that, again, this is Tony from GM2 regarding the air pollution during construction. In our contract specifications, we'll ensure that the contractor will exercise every reasonable precaution throughout construction to safeguard the air resources of the state, by controlling and abating air pollution in accordance with the DEP regulations. These measures include the control and abatement of dust, mist, smoke, vapor, the gas aerosol, and other particulate matters, including the odor substances that may occur from their operations, hauling, or storage of materials. This project, like I said, is primarily the preservation and rehab, so we do not anticipate a lot of dust from our construction excavations. So most of our excavations will be to the subbase layer, which is already compacted. So that's a good thing. They'll have water on site to, again, minimize those deaths. So at least during construction, we're looking to mitigate any air pollution during construction. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. So again, I know there's a similar question. Did you perform air quality study by exit 3? Again, it's not required. The air quality study that was done is done on a regional conformity basis in terms of how that's done. It's not done on a project level for this scope of improvement. Okay, let's see here. Another question that came in through the voicemail. Are there any impacts to East Putnam Avenue? What portion of East Putnam Avenue, duration of impacts, and steps to mitigate impact? Okay, so we'll have maybe Ryan kind of zoom into that area, and I'll let you guys answer that question.
I'll start pretty high up. So here, East Putnam Avenue, the Route 1 area, is pretty well off the limits of the project itself. However, with any of the overnight, very short-term detours, some traffic could potentially be on Route 1 while they're navigating around to the next ramp. In this case, if there are any impacts to East Putnam Avenue, they're going to be pretty minimal and overnight only. During the daytime, there wouldn't be any. So, during the daytime hours, we're not anticipating any impacts to any of the local roads, mostly because all lanes, as we mentioned, are fully operational during the day. The only roadways that are impacted during the day are any of the underpasses underneath I-95. And again, that's only when that bridge rehabilitation is ongoing underneath the bridges itself.
Thanks, Ryan. And I'd like to add, in terms of, again, as I mentioned, going forward, we will look at refining the design. One of the things that we're starting to do throughout the state, and many of you may have noticed, is the fact that during construction and within these construction zone, you'll see the trailers that have the updated real-time conditions in terms of the travel times, and so those smart work zones is what we call those, similar to what you've seen probably on Merritt Parkway and then I-95 in Norwalk, where it gives you what we're trying to convey is real-time conditions to the traveling public, so that you know what's happening up ahead, incidences, and so that we just want to make sure that everyone is well aware. We also use those signs for. We will be using those for any nighttime closures of any ramps that may need to be closed for short-term duration during the nighttime operations. I know we haven't specifically discussed it, but Ryan, I don't know if you want to touch on again the ramps in specific. In terms of why would need some of those closures at night, and some of the possibilities for detours.
Right. So any closure that's happening to the ramp, and again, as we said, these are short term. These are single night. You're going to have ample notice. You're going to have at least a week notice when a ramp is going to be closed. That work is strictly for either resurfacing of the roadway, repair of the of a concrete slab below the bituminous, or a replacement of an existing pipe that's crossing underneath the roadway itself. So we're not anticipating those being long term. We're not anticipating any work that's going to take more than one night, that you can't open that lane back up, or that exit or entrance ramp back up later on after the overnight work session.
Thanks, Ryan. Question that has come in here: will the DOT be painting direction arrows on the pavement along with overhead exit only signs, so that the traffic won't use these essential exit lanes for passing slower through traffic from the new right? So I'll turn that over to you guys. I'm trying to,
Sure.
maybe you guys understand the question. Sounds like overhead exit only signs. We don't have any auxiliary lanes that would, I don't think we have any exit only signs, do we? I'll turn that over to you, Tony.
Right, no, that's correct. I mean, again, we're early on in design. We're 30%. We're still developing the pavement siding and striping. At this time, we don't have any proposed pavement markings to indicate that exit. But again, we'll be working with the department closely, and if there's a need to that improves the operations, we'll absolutely include that. Again, this is the input we're looking for. We're at 30% design from the folks that actually live and drive this corridor. So these improvements or recommendations will absolutely be considered, and then we'll see if we can incorporate them.
Yeah, and to follow up, I think I understand in terms of we may even have had this discussion during our design reviews, and just so that everybody's aware, we have design reviews in-house, obviously support units from all of our specialty units, traffic, environmental, pavement, soils, you name it, bridge. They all look at and then review the plans as they go through, and I think maybe that was one of the concerns that had come up in taking a look at. I think I understand the constituents' concerns is mainline, obviously congestion, and you may have a little free flow in that decel lane. So we will definitely look at that's a good comment, and we will look into it. Next question. There's a lot of research that tree hazards are significantly lower than the long-term impact of removal, environmental and health considerations. Okay, so we understand. Yeah, we understand the removal of trees obviously is you know, a concern, and we, I can tell you this just from as our design had progressed. I think some of our early comments, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but were, hey, we see what we're doing here, what we need to do, but let's reduce the amount of tree clearing. And so we have already revised the design through our early discussions to eliminate as much as possible the tree clearing.
Yeah, if I can certainly add to that. So in terms of the accidents, so we did do a roadside safety audit. As part of that, we evaluated the crash data. We utilized the University of Connecticut's 3-year repository. As we know, there are high volumes of traffic through this corridor, so there are a high number of crashes. In a 3-year period, there were over 2,000 crashes, which equates to a little over 2 per day. As we discussed, the crashes were concentrated at the interchanges. However, we didn't find any apparent crash pattern to indicate any substandard geometric design elements. By far, the most striking pattern we found were rear-end crashes, as indicated, where it was indicative of congestion. Next was side swipes, and last was the roadway departures and fixed objects, which we're going to be utilizing roadside barriers and other upgrades to the guide rail to reduce those accidents. Again, in terms of the clearing for the sight distance, it really wasn't based on a number of crashes. It was really based on utilizing the FHWA design criteria for design speed and what the sight distance is required along that curve. We want to provide that sight distance for any future potential accidents. Again, it's only the minimal required to get that design criteria or sight distance around that corner, because if there is a stalled vehicle beyond the level of what you can see, that obviously that would be a safety issue. Again, most of the tree clearing along this corridor, I said it's almost approximately 2 acres total along the 6.6 miles. There was a few questions about the number of trees. I don't have the actual number of trees that'll be removed, but we do have that acreage. Again, it's mostly associated with the installation of the drainage, able to get down there. We will be obviously replanting where we can. Obviously, it takes several years to grow back up, but that is the general scope and goals of this project. Thank you, Neil.
And if I could touch, just to add one quick little caveat to that. So you're looking at the screen here that says the limbs overhanging the highway. It's not a clearing of the entire tree. It's taking down of the limbs that are overhanging on the roadway. So, you know, in many cases, it's a single limb or multiple limbs of a tree that are hanging over the highway that would need to be cleared just for the safety factor, just so that those limbs don't end up on the shoulder or in the outside lane.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, another question. Let's see here. I realize this is not on point to the upcoming project, but exit 5 is littered with downed trees and piles of debris, some adjacent to the roadway. It has been this way for months and it's dangerous. When will this be addressed? Okay, no, thank you. That's a good comment, and we will make sure that our maintenance folks are aware of that, and they can address that, you know, especially the downed trees. We don't want obviously any of that getting kicked into the roadway during a storm or anything. So yeah, we will make sure maintenance is aware of that. Okay, question via the email. And I just want to take a quick second here just to remind those that if anybody joined us on YouTube a little bit later on, that again, the best way to contact us through this Q&A session is through either email or phone. The phone line is 860-944-1111. And the email again is DOT project 56-316@ct.gov. Okay, email question. Why is exit 3 deceleration lane almost 3 times what is required when there has only been 83 accidents over the course of 3 years, when there is 11,000 vehicle trips per day at that exit. So yeah, I'll let Tony answer that question. I just want to add in terms of the impetus of this specific spot improvement. The department, some may be aware, has been looking at I-95 corridor, not only the state line to New Haven, but New Haven to the Rhode Island state line. And the recent study that has shown, I think it was an implementation plan that came out in 2019, which is really focused on short-term, mid-term, and long-term improvements. Obviously, though, one of the long-term improvements, if funding was available, would be to add an additional lane southbound from exit 7 to the state line to alleviate congestion. One of the short-term improvements that came out of that study was exit 3 southbound in this vicinity here, and I think everybody's aware of the fact that how it does back up onto main line during the morning peak hours, and very dangerous situation. So that's how this specific location, in addition to the safety concerns with the crasher. So I'll go ahead and turn that over to Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. Again, it's Tony from Gym 2. Just to add to what Neil is saying, so that congestion and queuing from the ramp backs up onto the main line of I-95. So that existing third lane of I-95 is essentially taken out of, it basically backs up all of the I-95. So it's the congestion of the queuing of that exit ramp really requires that deceleration length that we have here. I do want to add as well that we talked about the air quality before. The improvement, air quality, as we know, is sometimes also due to congestion, or mostly due to congestion. And this improvement will at least have some qualitative reduction in that improvement. So, I don't know if you want to add anything else, Ryan? Or the crash?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was on mute. So the crash data that we collected for this area, it shows that it is a hotspot, and what we noticed is, the safety of that exit and the behavior of the vehicles are, as you're slowing down trying to take exit 3 southbound off ramp, you're slowing down in that right-hand lane for quite a duration. So you're starting to slow down all the way back to the bridge number 11, which is on the right of the screen that you're looking at now. So taking that traffic out of the main line and putting them in that deceleration lane, which is that rightmost lane that you're seeing on the screen, taking them out as early as possible does twofold. It reduces the amount of cars that are going slower trying to anticipate that exit, and it also takes some of that backup that you're experiencing on the exit 3 southbound and puts it in the decel lane as opposed to the right-hand lane of mainline. Back to you, Neil.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, another question in regards to construction. Where are the major construction staging areas going to be located?
I can grab this one.
Sure.
So again, this is Ryan from GM2. We have identified multiple areas along the corridor. Again, it's 6.6 miles long. Many of them are gore areas, so they're the infield areas between the ramp and mainline. So we're trying to identify those areas as much as possible. And if there's any area required that's beyond what's available on site, we would have to investigate with the contractor any areas off-site that would be used. However, we're hopeful that we can do everything that we need, store everything that we need in those gore areas along the corridor in an area that's already open. It's already an infield area, grassy area, wherever possible.
Thanks, Ryan. And just to add to that, yeah, as the contractor comes on board and proposes staging areas, that has to go through an approval process with our construction folks who oversee the construction phase. Next question here. So no underground capture of the stormwater. No retention, just swales and sheet runoff goes right into the sound, and your approach seems inconsistent with state policies for low impact development. So I guess Tony or Paul, I guess we'll throw that over to you in regards to our drainage design and our requirements for meeting the stormwater quality. I'll let you guys take that.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. This is Paul Brand from GM2. This is a preservation project. In that regard, there's not a lot of locations for us to prepare retention or create retention throughout the corridor. Not a lot of real estate to work with. No median areas, as you see on a lot of other highways where you could do retention. The other issue we have with groundwater recharge or recharge below the surface is that we have a lot of shallow rock throughout the area, and the soils just don't really support underground recharge. There are very little to no existing BMPs through this corridor at outlets. There's 40 plus outlets throughout this corridor. And as part of the project and part of our MS4, which requires us to look at opportunities to improve stormwater quality, we are installing sediment forebays in the form of scour holes that will capture pollutants and sediment prior to runoff. Prior to discharge to water bodies. One of the other things we're doing is we're pulling quite a few of these outlets back away from the water bodies, pulling them a little closer to the highway so that we have some areas to provide additional resident time within wooded areas and wetlands and whatnot prior to discharge to water bodies. So we are making the best effort we can to do water quality improvements, but we are very limited by the conditions out on the site. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Got one more question just before I get to this question. Just want to remind everyone that, again, comments via email and the phone, or will be welcome through the comment period to February 22nd. Okay, next question here. Are you working up the line? Will exit 5 to North Stamford be next? So the project limits for this project go to exit 6 in Stamford. So it's just a very small stretch in Stamford. And then there is another project that starts at exit 6 in Stamford, and it goes to just before exit 7 in Stamford with some similar improvements, although within that vicinity there is an auxiliary lane that is proposed between exit 7 and 6 southbound. And again, what you're looking at for the corridor of 95 is we have a project that should be going out, I think, later this year, I believe, in Norwalk, Westport, one of the few remaining sections where you still have a grass median and you still have substandard barrier out there, so that's going to get upgraded. So we're looking for that consistency throughout the 95 corridor to enhance the safety. We'd love to get illumination in the median as much as possible where we can. Although it all depends within the, depending on the width of the median. We have some very narrow spots throughout the corridor. Even in Greenwich here, we have some, as we get into the New York State line, it's very narrow. The question via the email: how long will the ramps be closed for?
Can handle this one. Again, this is Ryan from GM2. So here, just showing a typical detour again. So all of these detours, any of the off ramps or on ramps, are going to be single night duration. So one night, close the ramp, do the work that you need to do that you can handle in one night, and then open it back up fully operational the next day. You'll have ample notice, and we're trying to make sure that we keep that traffic on main line as much as possible. So all of those are going to be single night duration. So if a ramp is closed one night and there's more work necessary, it will be opened again during the day and then closed again during the night. So it's single night detours, but there's, depending on the level of work that's necessary at each ramp, it could be multiple nights, but as I said, it would be opened again during the daytime.
Great.
Thanks.
And I'll just add on to that, Ryan. Again, this is Tony. We will give the public a minimum of 1 week's notice prior to any detour. Once we start construction, we're going to have extensive public outreach. We'll include public website. We'll have email news blast to make sure that the public is notified of which ramp is detoured during which night. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Tony. Again, my name is Neil Patel, the project manager for the Department of Transportation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us during this question and answer session for Project 56-316. Now, the question that we got here, will you please reach out to the town of Greenwich on the specific issue of landscape buffer? So yes, when we did meet with the town, we talked about in terms of what we'll be doing as the design gets progressed in terms of some opportunities, and we will be coordinating. We'll coordinate with the town. We have what we call, as we go into final design, a semi-final design, which we call like a 60% completion, and then again we have a 90% as we get towards final design. And in terms of schedule, Tony had mentioned the schedule for the project, and with construction anticipated in the fall of 2022. I just wanted to add also, he talked about when our design would be complete, and we can't secure construction funds to go to construction until we obviously have a complete design, until we have any permits approved. So we got to go through the permit process. We do not have any right-of-way impacts on this project. And so we need to have that. We have to have our funding secured, so before we can go to construction. So we will be reaching out to the town as we go through the final design phase, and specifically to that question, we will follow up on that. Thank you for that question. Okay, let's see. Now the question has come in through the voicemail. I live off of exit 3. Will there be rock blasting? That's a good question in regards to the exit 3 improvements, and everybody's aware in that area there is ledge within that area. So Tony or Ryan, I'll let you guys take answer that one.
Sure. Thank you, Ryan. Again, this is Tony. So as we show here, we do have some proposed widening for the installation of that additional deceleration lane. It does appear there are some rock outcrops out there. We will be taking some geotechnical borings this springtime to determine the level and extent of the required excavation. It does appear to maybe some potential blasting through that corridor, but again, we're looking to minimize that if required through design. But we will be taking geotechnical borings this spring just to confirm the limits and locations and then design accordingly.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, another question. There's talk about a new off-ramp between exit 2 and 3 northbound. Is that true? Not to my knowledge, and that would, in terms of access, I think there's, in this area there is plenty of access, and we've had that access issues in other parts of the state on I-95, but no, there is no plans for a new off-ramp between exit 2 and 3 northbound. Okay, another follow-up question in regards to sound barrier. Did you consider putting up a sound barrier on the southbound side between exits 4 and 3? So again, as we have discussed previously, in terms of this project qualifying, it does not qualify for noise analysis given the scope of improvement. So at this time, there are no noise barriers proposed. Okay, question from, let's see here. At exit 5, there's been an attempt to deal with parked trucks by piling wood chips. Maybe a wood barrier would be more effective and more attractive. Is this issue going to be addressed with this project? So it seems like there are some issues with the exit 5 off ramp, which we will be forwarding to our maintenance folks to address in terms of the debris. And so we will have that discussion with them specific to this area, which is the exit 5, which is exit for your Route 1 Post Road. Okay, next question. Will there be any more public meetings on this project? So at this time, you know, what we go through our federal approvals and we proceed into final design. We don't anticipate another public meeting going forward in design. We'll have those discussions with the town. We'll certainly have materials available. Again, we'll have we have our project website that's up right now where you can find some information. But going forward, yeah, we will be coordinating with town. You know, as we go into construction, quite often the construction folks who oversee our projects, they will hold public meetings or informationals. They will definitely do press releases, but they will get the word out before construction starts. So that is another avenue of public outreach. Okay, what we got here, another one. Just north of exit 5, going towards New York, trees were removed. There's now open space with no barrier. If a car went off the road, it would end up on the Post Road, Putnam Avenue. There's nothing to stop it. Someone needs to drive up the Post Road from exit 3 to 6 and look at the highway. There are multiple areas along here that now need barriers because of tree removal. Okay, thank you very much. It's a good comment. And we had done field reviews. Tony, you can add in terms of what our first initial phase was to go out there and do it. Now, that was obviously 2 years ago. So, but we did look at some of those areas, and maybe this is something for another drive-through. We'll also be contacting maintenance also. So, Tony, I'll let you expand
absolutely
on that.
Appreciate it, Neil. We will. So right now we do have a number of new upgraded MASH-compliant guide rail proposed along this corridor, the full 6.6 miles. So all areas that require and meet the requirements for guide rail, we will be putting that in. We'll take a fresh look for this actual area that was mentioned here, just to ensure that there's no new issues that we missed. But again, all new areas will have proposed upgraded MASH compliant guide rail. And I don't know if Ryan, you can call up to Google if that helps.
Yeah, if somebody wants to share it with me, I can pop that open. But as through our design, we are evaluating the roadside safety throughout the entire corridor. So yes, as Tony mentioned, we're replacing all roadside safety elements, such as the metal beam rail, with the newer compliant MASH guide rail. And also in some cases where if we're moving an overhead sign or if we're connecting to a bridge, we're going to update that with some roadside barrier. So I actually have, I can go into CAD here. So here you can see, like, throughout the corridor along the outside, I'm at a bridge right now, along the outside, we're updating all of the guide rail along the outside. So here you have the guide rail with the anchorage there, and that continues all the way through. So we're going to be protecting any of the new roadside appurtenances, such as the overhead signs, and in any other locations where vehicle safety is a concern where, some off tracking, some roadway departures could be possible, we would take care of that. Here we have, here's a section that you can see where guide rail exists today, and we're updating it with some newer barrier, and they're for various reasons, but all safety related for the corridor. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. The question here, will you be presenting a vegetation management plan to the town of Greenwich before any trees are removed to be removed by our, or before any trees are to be removed by our first selectman and town tree warden? Essentially asking, will you be presenting a plan to the town of Greenwich? So again, in terms of the tree clearing, all the tree clearing that we'll be performing is within the state right away. We have, and we'll continue to try and limit as much as possible the tree clearing. We understand, we've heard the concerns today, and we will try to limit it as much as possible. We will also be looking at those, as I said before, with our landscaping unit, those sustainable vegetative buffers as where feasible, where we can put it in. It all depends on our maintenance operations. Also depends on the area and the environment, again, in terms of what would actually survive in some of these areas. So we will be going through with that. But in terms of presenting the plan, the specific management plan per se, we wouldn't have that to go through approvals through the town, but we again will be discussing our plans as we move forward with the town. Okay, another question here. Is there anything more that can be done to stop trucks parking on the southbound side between exits 3 and 2? There's an on-ramp there, and trucks often cross the on-ramp to park in the no parking zone opposite the way station. Yes, we are familiar with the old, obviously the toll station area. With the wide pavement, we have taken a look at this area. We want to have discussions with our highway operations unit out of Bridgeport as they patrol that area specifically, and some of our other support units within the department in terms of how we best treat this area. We had some preliminary discussions with our railroad unit because there's access there right to the rail line that they need to maintain to get into for maintenance on their facilities. So we understand the concern there, and we will definitely look into it and try and limit it as much as possible, especially the operations that you discussed. So thank you for that comment. We wouldn't want the trucks to come across the on-ramp there. Another question here through the voicemail. What Metro North commuter parking lot impacts are expected? Okay, Ryan, looks like you're going to take that one.
Yes. So again, the Sound Shore Drive commuter lot, any of those impacts, they would be just during the day, and those are associated just with the work that's being done in the vicinity of the bridge. So here you're looking at, so here, if there's any work being done underneath to the bearings above, these cars wouldn't be allowed to be there just because they're in the vicinity of the work that's being done. However, the rest of the lot would be available for the rest of the public. And that's, again, these are short-term closures of temporary portions, temporary short-term closures of a portion of the lot as opposed to the entire lot. These closures are going to happen just during the daytime, as I said, and we're going to be working with the town to make sure that there's ample notice so that any of the commuters are going to be able to plan ahead, plan accordingly for this. However, we do anticipate these only being partial closures, never a full parking lot closure. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Looks like we're getting most close down to the end here. Let's see, we got a couple more. And again, I just want to remind everyone, even after tonight's Q&A session, you can always email and call in your comments until February 22nd. So this is similar to a previous question. When the weigh station opens, there are numerous trucks parking in the northbound zone near exit 2. Yes. So yeah, we will definitely make note of that and talk to our operations folks there. Let them know at the weigh station. I'm pretty sure they're aware of it. I think they try to meter that to the best extent possible. Similarly, up here, this area here, Middletown 91 northbound with the weigh station, it does back up onto the main line, and so yeah, they're supposed to actually monitor that and kind of. I think they shut down the weigh station until that queue dissipates. But we thank you for your comment. We will definitely make note of that and make them aware of that. Okay, so again, I just want to remind everyone in terms of the project website. That's DOT project 56-316 at ct.gov. The survey, if you can take a few minutes to fill out that survey, located at www.surveymonkey.com/r/GDKRH8J. Very good comments tonight, and concerns and questions. Appreciate that. We thank everyone for joining us. Just checking here to see if we've got any further questions. And again, as you can see, if you're joining us via the live event on MS Teams, the moderator has posted the website and also the link to the survey. We've got a follow-up, I think, here. Sorry, but it is not a backup. It is trucks parked before the weigh station. Okay, so the truck drivers are using it as a de facto rest area, which, yeah, that again, you know, as part of when we meet with a follow-up meeting in regards to the southbound side where the trucks park, we will, you know, bring that point up, and that's probably, it's more of an enforcement issue in terms of the trucks finding any spot to pull over and use as a rest area. It is, yeah, especially when the weigh station's closed because the gates are closed, I believe. So thank you for that comment. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Just want to make sure we've got everybody answered here. We'll give a couple of seconds for the moderator, make sure that we have addressed everyone's concerns. Again, I want to thank everyone for participating. I want to thank the design team and all those folks behind the scenes that helped put this together. We have been doing a few of these virtual public informational meetings now since the beginning of the pandemic, and it seems to be received well by the public. There is a lot of work behind the scenes, but I think it's the fact that we do get some more feedback and we have more people attending. It's a positive, something that I think the department will probably take into consideration as we move forward. With that, if there are no further questions, we are going to wrap up today's public informational meeting for Project 56-316. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you, and good night.